And now, coming to you live from Huntsville Attic Studios, it's Pop Culture Philosophers. And here are your hosts, Rockin, Robbie, Billups, and John Hammertime Holshoe.
Hey everybody, it's the Pop Culture Philosophers. Come to you live from the Huntsville Attic in beautiful Huntsville, Alabama, the Rocket City. Some people call it the Windy City or the Big Apple. That's not true. It's the Rocket City. And tonight we're excited to talk about the great director, writer, producer, Sir Ridley Scott. Sir Ridley Scott. Not just a regular director. He's a damn knight. How many knights are directors or vice versa? So I'm really excited to talk about Ridley Scott, great director, one of my favorite directors, so I think this will be an exciting topic. Of course, I'm John Hammertime Holshoe, with me always, Rockin' Robbie Billups.
That's right, everybody. Rockin' Robbie Billups here. And John, I just want to say that I love how you said or vice versa. Like as if there are knights who happen to be directors.
Yeah. In the olden days.
That's funny. I really like that. So, Ridley Scott is straight up my favorite director of all time. Like he's up there with Steven Spielberg.
I thought you were going to say Spielberg, rare Spielberg.
Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Spielberg's Spanish cousin, Steven Spielberg. Love these guys. Christopher Nolan, Wes Anderson, fantastic directors. Ridley Scott, though, to me is my absolute favorite. So I'm so excited to do this episode.
He's got a great body of work.
He also has a pretty decent body for an 80-year-old gentleman.
Yeah. We'll put some nude photos up on the site below the podcast.
If you look at that type stuff. Straight up, though, I am super pumped. With us tonight, we have regular PCP excitable crew member here, Justin Goldsmith.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
It goes very well. You got very loud there, but that's okay, man. You're excited about Ridley Scott. Tell me why.
Yeah, because he really just paints portraits that are 2 hours long.
Oh, I figured it'd be like he paints portraits and he directs films.
Or longer.
They're beautiful. Yeah. All of his movies.
Speaking of beautiful, Drew Madsen is here. Dashing he is.
Oh, incredibly dashing, yeah. Ridley Scott is one of the GOATs. He is the greatest of all time. He does a lot of great movies.
Absolutely.
I thought you meant he was an actual goat. Because that's an impressive directing body if you were like a small animal.
Yeah, we don't want those pictures up on the internet. Okay.
So if you're listening to this show and you have no idea who Ridley Scott is, we applaud your dedication to us. But we think you're more of a fan of Ridley Scott than you are of us. But if you're not, or if you just don't know some of his background, I believe Hammertime here has got a little bit of the background of Ridley Scott, who he is, what he does, and why it matters.
Okay, he was. Let's see, he was born in Russia. He was raised in the Kremlin. No. He's a British director.
Fake news.
No, for real though.
No collusion.
So Ridley Scott was born in England, 1937. He's like I said, he's a director, writer, producer of the film and television. He attended the Royal College of Art in London, helped them establish their film department. Actually, he went on to work for the BBC as a designer before starting to direct shows for the BBC in 1965. In '68, him and his brother Tony Scott, they started Ridley Scott Associates. They mostly did commercials. Should be noted, besides his brother, Tony Scott, who recently passed away, Ridley Scott's two sons, and daughter have both worked for Ridley Scott Associates. They make films, commercials, music videos. So it runs in the family, I guess, being involved in film and commercial production. Back to Ridley. His first film was The Duelist, saw moderate success. His next film was a little film called Alien in 1979, and that was a huge success.
And that is only number 2.
Yeah, that's number 2. In 1980, Ridley and Tony actually started Scott Free Productions.
Scott Free.
And then in 82, his follow-up film was a little film called Blade Runner.
A little film.
That did okay. In 84,
it actually didn't do that well.
It didn't do what Alien did.
And
it had a cult following, but it didn't do poorly, I should say. But it didn't pull the numbers Alien did. In 84, he goes back to commercials. He did the now famous 84 Apple commercial that premiered during the Super Bowl, which was a pretty big deal for the computer business. That was a landmark commercial for personal computers.
You know, that's a really interesting moment in pop culture that I don't think we've ever mentioned on the podcast.
With the his
1984 commercial?
Yeah.
Super Bowl commercial, yeah.
And then he returned to film after that, and he's brought many films to the big screen. Gladiator. There's so many films. We'll get to all his films. He's a very diverse director, and he's done some fantastic films, and he's really known for his atmosphere and his visual style. But that's just a little bit of information on him. Of course, there's more information available on the World Wide Web, so much more details. We could go on and probably do a podcast and just talk about his life and his films and his works, because he's an interesting fella, and he's done a lot.
He has done a lot. And what I want to know is, why are we here right now recording a podcast here in the Huntsville Attic studio about Ridley Scott? So, Justin, tell me, why do you love Ridley Scott?
His movies, they do not insist upon themselves. I don't know. No, like the way he just lets it happen. It's kind of hard to explain.
Okay.
Like, it seems like if you watch it at first, it feels like it drags out, like some of his shots.
You're really selling it.
But if you look at what's going on, I don't know. I can't explain it.
Okay. There's just something about it.
Yeah.
Visually.
It's his visual style, I think, is my favorite thing about it.
Absolutely. He comes from a background as a production designer.
Yeah, he started
right?
a production designer for the BBC.
And it's very meticulous the way he views that. Drew, thank you for being here. Why... I just hit my tooth on the microphone. Why are you actually here on the show? Why do you love Ridley Scott?
I like him because a lot of his films, they try and tell, like you'll look at a story and you think it's trying to tell you one thing, but it's actually trying to tell you a different one.
Ooh.
There's a great article on Grantland, R.I.P. to Grantland, about it. They call it his Trojan horse career, about how like you think it's going to be sword and sandals in Gladiator, but it's actually about fighting against an oppressive regime type deal, and and deals with that. Anytime that I see Scott Free come up, I know it's going to be a middling to great, like one of my favorite movies. No matter what, like his bad movies are better than most that we get every day.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He is our very own Mr. Miracle with that Scott Free.
Oh, nice. Nice reference there, Drew. And I really like what you said, the layers, even in the story, because Ridley Scott gets accused of not really caring about the story. Like, there are many mentions, like, when they're making Ridley Scott films, like, for instance, when they're making Gladiator, they got tons of consultants there, and they're like, homie, this didn't happen at this time in history. They didn't have these weapons. They didn't have this technique. I don't care. I'm making a movie.
Yeah.
Like,
He's like, Maximus wasn't wearing Reebok pumps back then. Like, I don't fucking care. It looks cool.
But it means something thematically.
It's very cool anachronism when
Let me air these up and go cut these people.
Speaking of airing it up and cutting people, John, what do you think? Why are we here? Why did we decide to do this podcast? Why does Ridley Scott matter to you?
I love his work. He definitely, again, atmosphere, style, and I think there's been occasions when he sacrificed some accuracies or some story for the overall visual, but that doesn't happen all the time. And when he does do it, it's not like it's just popcorn flicks. There's a lot of people who make, there's films I've enjoyed. I'm accused of it too, of enjoying films that are visually masterpieces, but there's no substance. And I think he gives us both. If he has to cross the line, occasionally he will do more more style than substance. But then you got films that are opposite of that, like Matchstick Men. There's no grand spaceships or aliens, Matchstick Men. Spoiler alerts, there's no aliens.
Yeah, right.
But I think he's just a fantastic director, and I like his body of work, man. He's done a great job.
Sometimes I think that his style is the substance of the film.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I love Ridley Scott. Like everything you guys said, I love his vision. He has such a vision. Every movie he does, whether it's Body of Lies or Robin Hood, or if it's like Gladiator or Blade Runner or Alien, he's got a vision, and he's committed to that vision. And you can tell that he is unrelenting in who he is. And it's because his second movie was Alien. His third movie is Blade Runner. He built a career straight up just being like, I am Ridley Scott. Hear me roar. And that's how it goes. So I love his vision, his commitment to that vision. Visually, his movies are all stunning. Even movies that are kind of boring to me, like A Good Year, it's visually stunning, even for a drama. It's no less...
Is that the film about the tire company?
It's no less visually interesting than Blade Runner or Gladiator to me. I also love his diversity in film. And I'm not talking about the actors or anything. I'm talking about I'm a huge sci-fi fan, right? And that's the reason why I'm a huge Ridley Scott fan, because he's done some of the greatest science fiction films of all time. But the majority of his films are not science fiction. And that's something we'll get into a little bit later. But I love the diversity. I love his vision. I love his commitment to that vision. And I love his characters.
He has some great characters, and he's works with some great actors. I would say there's some characters that really stand out because I think especially his main characters or his main villains, he's made some very iconic characters. So I'd like to know if there are any characters that stand out in your mind. I'll start with Drew. Are there some characters from Scott films that just like, well, these guys stand out, or these are the most memorable? Because he's made some iconic characters, in my opinion.
I mean, the first one that jumps out to my mind is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
Maximus. What a name, too.
Are you not entertained?
Servant of the true Emperor Marcus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife.
Dude, Drew's got this down.
I think y'all might could tell my number one. But he's got some minor characters that are great, too. In Kingdom of Heaven, one of his like lesser loved, except for the director's cut. There's David Thewlis plays.
Yes.
He doesn't have a name. His character doesn't have a name other than the Hospitaller, which is like he's a counter to like the very like go with God, the Knights Templar type. He does not drink. Like he's celibate, but he's an incredible fighter, and he generally believes in doing things for good.
And spoiler alert, he's the god of war.
Yeah, he is the god of war.
He's also a werewolf.
Oh yeah.
That's a Harry Potter Justice League Wonder Woman reference anyway.
All right.
He's been a
lost
lot
there.
But another one from Kingdom of Heaven that really shined in the director's cut is Edward Norton playing the Leper King.
Yes.
Edward Norton.
Dude, you're talking about some Kingdom of Heaven.
Yeah, people never really think about Edward Norton in that movie because he's got this giant like mask on, and people are like, "Oh yeah, that was Edward Norton." But he plays a great king who's always like he can't go out and be loved by the public because he has leprosy and he has to deal with that. But he still remains
sort of like Robbie has very similar. That's why he just does the shows.
Well,
and
you
the
know,
videos.
I got the right kind of lotion. I'm working on it.
He has a ton like that.
Robbie, are there any characters that stand in your mind?
Are you not
Ridley
entertained?
Scott films?
Maximus. I mean, that's the first one I got listed.
Yeah, I
here.
got them listed too.
I'm with Drew. I think Russell Crowe does a great job in that role. Thelma and Louise.
Both of them.
Both of them. Amazing characters ahead of their time. But they shouldn't have been ahead of their time. Yeah. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, that's a movie that feels like it should be made right now. And it would be relevant. But it was made in the early 90s. And it was relevant before its time. Does that make sense? People should listen to the theme of that movie. Plus, Gina Davis, Susan Sarandon, amazing in that movie. And a young, early in his career, super dreamy Brad Pitt.
Oh, yeah, that kickstarted his career right there.
And I really like Fassbender as David in Prometheus. I think that.
I
think is a very intriguing character.
What a dick!
I'm just gonna say. I feel like I'm failing, but I haven't seen Alien Covenant yet.
Yeah, David plays a big part.
I haven't either.
And I hear that, but David in Prometheus, I love that character. I think that Ridley really likes to take these sci-fi concepts and move them forward and try to really get into it. And with artificial intelligence, he does that with David, and I think that's some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But Maximus, you can't beat the intensity of that character, man.
Yeah, Maximus is awesome. What about you, Goldsmith? There's some characters that stand out that you love from the Ridley Scott films.
I was going to mention David. He's really good.
That guy would be a great Magneto. Anybody ever thought about that?
Yeah.
Younger. He would, yeah. I think he'd be a good James Bond, to be honest.
Yeah, actually, you're not bad about that.
I think he would.
Yeah.
A robot James Bond.
Doombot.
I can't.
Bondbot.
I can't believe neither of the two of you have mentioned Deckard.
Oh yeah, man.
I figured someone else would.
I think Deckard is kind of an asshole, so I don't really think he's that.
Well, so is David. So his greatest characters are all assholes.
Yeah.
I guess so. Maximus isn't too big of an asshole. He's a good dude.
He's a good dude.
He's a good dude.
Goldsmith could be a Ridley Scott character for talking about assholes. I'm sorry. Is there any besides Deckard you want to mention?
Or why Deckard, man?
Oh yeah.
Why Deckard? Because
other than being an asshole,
real,
or is it because you love Harrison Ford?
Is he a cooler character than Han Solo? The hard-hitting stuff here on Pop Culture Philosophers.
He kind of reminds me of Indiana Jones.
Harrison Ford's. Yeah, right.
I really don't.
I don't. Justin's whole theme tonight is I don't know. Okay, Justin's whole theme is I don't know.
Somebody else I wanted to mention though was Donald Glover's character from The Martian.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I liked him a lot. A lot of quirks.
I didn't know if we were going to mention that film as much. It seems to not get as much love.
It's a newer one.
Yeah.
The Martian?
Yeah.
I think it's one of his
really
better
good.
ones, like of recent years, though.
Yeah,
yeah, it's his best recently.
Oh, good. Okay, because I saw the film and no one ever talks about it.
Speaking of better recently, what about you, John?
I think you mentioned everybody except I was going to bring up Ripley.
Oh, yeah. So how do we not mention Ripley?
So
Oh my
not only an iconic character, but subsequent sequels revolve
I think
around this
that
character.
the character grows more in those sequels, to be honest with you.
And
like,
she's a badass.
It's a character I think that actually... I like Alien better than Aliens, but I think that James Cameron handled that character better than Ridley Scott did.
Yeah, well, I think
sense?
he also, since the focus is more on her, it feels like it's more on her. She had more, maybe,
the majority of
character
Alien,
growth.
she's running around in her
Yeah.
underwear.
Yeah.
You know, and she's a typical horror movie.
Yeah, it is a horror
Cliche.
film, so it does have some
it
cliche.
is. I
It's
get
just a
that,
horror
yeah.
film in space. So,
I love Alien, don't get me wrong.
but I think, but he
it's a
gave
great
us that character that grew
Absolutely.
in subsequent films.
Yes.
So, but he's had a lot of great characters. I
great
think I could narrow
casting.
him down.
Great casting
but-
on that character.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And none of us mentioned Denzel in American Gangster.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, Frank Lucas, I think, was
Yeah,
the
Frank
character's
Lucas.
What a great
name.
character. And it's sad to be like, that's a great character because that's
It's
real.
based
that's
on a real
person.
you
Real
know,
dude.
and he
Yeah.
did do real nice things.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about these characters and the brilliant performances behind them. So let's talk about these actors real quick. Who are some of your favorite actors in these movies? I'm going to start off real quick and just mention Russell Crowe because he
He's
seems
worked with Russell Crowe before?
yeah, and it seems to be the one that he's worked with the most, right? He's done some great movies, even movies that are not good, like Robin Hood or Body of Lies. Like Russell Crowe and Ridley Scott make a good duo. They're kind of like the Scorsese De Niro, Scorsese DiCaprio. DiCaprio was in that Body of Lies movie too. That was that's a
I think Russell Crowe
Don't
has
like
it in
that
his
movie.
contract like every other film has to be a Ridley Scott film.
But I'm going to start us off with Russell Crowe because I think a lot of us have that in common. Then I'm going to jump over to Justin and be like, what do you got for favorite actors in Ridley Scott films?
Well, Harrison Ford, obviously. from
Okay.
Blade Runner.
Yes. Okay.
Sigourney Weaver, of
Yes.
course.
Yes.
And we talked about Donald Glover.
Yes, we did.
I feel like all the characters I mentioned are the actors I'm going to pick.
Okay. Okay. What about you, Drewski?
I really think I am not a huge Nicolas Cage fan, but I thought that he got the best
Holy shit.
the
Yes.
best Nicolas Cage movie in
Yes.
Matchstick Men. Like
Yeah.
like you take a random Nicolas Cage movie, I'm like, I'll be okay with that. But I actually bought Matchstick Men because of how great it was.
It's a great film.
Plus, you got Sam Rockwell. in it.
Yeah,
Sam
Sam
Rockwell, I
Rockwell's really
forgot
good.
about, yeah.
Yeah, but he does a great job of assembling like huge cast because people like in Kingdom of Heaven, it's like, oh, one of your like Liam Neeson's in it. It's great.
Yes.
He's only in it for like half an hour, 45 minutes, but he's great. And then you've got Jeremy Irons in that movie,
Which is only like 10% of the movie.
yeah, it's director's cut is 3 hours and 9 minutes.
Yes.
I watched it.
Worth every bit of it, though.
It's long as hell. Yeah, but
You know, and he even made Orlando Bloom bearable in that movie.
oh yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Three
So, yeah.
hours of them.
Yes.
Yeah, and then he got a really good performance out of Matt Damon in The Martian.
Oh, yeah.
all
Yeah.
alone by himself for the majority of the movie.
Absolutely. Speaking of Matt Damon, he's dreamy, and he knows how to ride a motorcycle. Straight up, if you watch Bourne Ultimatum, you know that. Speaking of riding a motorcycle and being dreamy, John.
Thank you.
What
I get compared to Matt Damon's... No, I don't.
your favorite
Neighbor.
Your favorite
His friend Ben Affleck. That's
favorite
what I get-
performances in a Ridley Scott film.
Some of me brought up. Yeah, Denzel Washington does a great job as Frank Lucas. Josh Hartnett in Black Hawk Down
Yeah.
Oh yes.
does a phenomenal job. And like you said, we brought up Nicolas Cage. I'm not a big Nick Cage fan. I know he's in a lot of good films or great films, some crap films. I think Matchstick Man is the best film I've enjoyed of his work since Raising Arizona. I'm not a huge...
I thought you were going to say Con Air.
Because I actually like Raising Arizona.
I thought I was going to say a big car
And
guy.
I
Gone in
don't
60
like
seconds.
a lot of the films he's in. And maybe it's not Nick Cage's fault. Maybe he's just not in a role that lets him... You know what I'm saying? He's in these action films or comedies or whatever.
Don't sleep on Gone in 60 Seconds. If you listen to the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles podcast, I love that movie.
I have seen that movie at least 10 times because it always came on like public TV. Like I've seen it so many
It is
times.
one of his best roles, John, though.
And one of my favorites that we haven't mentioned that I didn't think nobody else mentioned yet was Naomi. Is it Rapici? How do you say her last name? She was in Prometheus. She's Elizabeth Shaw.
Oh, okay.
She makes a small appearance in.
Rapace, I think.
Is
it
she the one
Rapace?
that gets the abortion by machine?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
And she's in the. Isn't she in the original Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and all those? She's in those films. The foreign ones.
I think she is, actually.
She is,
Yeah.
and and she's got a very minor part in, of course, Covenant. But I think she does a great job, and Elizabeth Shaw is such a great character. Such a great character.
I have a question before
Yes.
we move off this segment. Have you guys all seen 1492? Conquest of Paradise.
That's a Ridley Scott film.
That is a
Scott
Ridley
movie.
Scott
Yeah.
film. I've seen it, but I haven't seen it since like middle school.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen it, but I
same.
know Armand Desante is in it, and he's one of my
Yeah.
at least top 20 favorite actors.
Yeah, what's that movie he did with Barbara Streisand or whatever, right? No.
The Odyssey?
Anyway, I would also add in here real quick Tim Curry,
Oh yeah,
who has played some of the
Legend,
scary-
right? Isn't he the bad guy in Legend?
And he's played some of the scariest characters of all time. And Rutger Hauer.
Mm-hmm.
Rutger Hauer from the Rutger Hauer Power Hour. Seriously, Roy Batty is a great character. We'll get to that more in the next segment. We'll be talking about our favorite villains. We'll be talking about the diversity of Ridley Scott films and a whole lot more, including our favorite moments, here on Pop Culture Philosophers, Ridley Scott. Hey everybody, Rockin' Robbie here. I want to talk to you real quick about our YouTube channel. You got to get on YouTube, find Pop Culture Philosophers, and subscribe. There you will find the weekly comic book review, new comic book reviews every single week. Also the weekly pop culture wrap-up. It's also the only place you can find the Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie podcast. And we just launched a brand new show called Movie Monday. Every Monday, a new video. We're going to be talking about movies, and we are starting with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Everything from Iron Man all the way up to Avengers Infinity War. That's right, Movie Monday every Monday on our YouTube channel, as well as the weekly comic book review and other such favorites and surprises along the way. So, check us out at youtube.com/popculturephilosophers. Hey everybody, welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. We're talking about Ridley Scott here tonight. We got John Hammertime Holshoe with us,
Hey,
Justin Goldsmith,
What's that?
and Drew
Jesus.
Oh my god.
That was
Turn me down.
wow. Okay, I want to turn Justin down a little bit. Anyway, so we're talking about Ridley Scott, and one of the things about Ridley Scott is he is a well-renowned science fiction film director.
Well
But
renowned.
he has done so many more films than just science fiction. For instance, his sci-fi films are like Alien, Prometheus, Alien Covenant, Blade Runner, The Martian. But then you got movies like Gladiator, Robin Hood, Black Hawk Down,
Wait a
G.I.
minute,
Jane.
Robin Hood wasn't a science fiction film?
No. Body of Lies, Thelma and Louise, Black Rain, White Squall, Matchstick Men, American Gladiator, Legend, Kingdom of Heaven, Exodus. This cat makes a lot more movies than just science
Oh,
fiction.
yeah.
What can you tell me about the diversity of storytelling in Ridley Scott's career, Drew?
Ridley Scott is someone that, going back to the 70s, you could probably go every decade and he's got a hit to monster hit. Like, they're not always in the same genre too, because you have Alien, which is very much a horror movie.
Yeah, it's set in
Yes.
space, but it's a horror film
Yeah.
only. Yeah.
And then you've got Blade Runner, which is this incredibly stylistic, futuristic. We have everything that like changed filmmaking in the 80s. 90s, you've got Thelma and Louise, and that was huge for women. Huge is like a buddy escape movie, sort of running from the cops. And then you have 2000s. He did huge Swords and Sandals, where Gladiator, you had Kingdom of Heaven. And you also sprinkled in like a Black Hawk Down.
Yes.
And then 2010s, you've got Martian. You've got
Yes. So in addition to sci-fi, you got epics, biblical epics, historical epics. Historical epics.
Yeah,
Epics.
You got war movies, you got comedies, you got crime films, you got fantasy, all this stuff. What can you tell me about the diversity in his storytelling, Justin?
The thing that I like, as far as the diversity of his stuff goes, is that he can change up his pacing
Okay, yeah.
better
okay.
than most any director I can think of.
Yes.
Like, even in, say, Alien, like, it's kind of slow-ish. Like I was talking about earlier, how it's like a big, huge picture, and you're just kind of looking at a little bit of it at a time.
Yes.
And then you'll get to parts, and it'll get real tense and fast for quite a while. More so than any other. Like, it goes from extremely slow-moving to, like, really, really, really fast-paced.
He is totally an expert in suspense.
Yeah.
Yes. And he can take that pace of that film and like crank it up
Yeah.
and then slow it back down.
And even without the tension, then you got his, like, Matchstick Man, or it's more of a bouncy
Yes.
comedy-ish.
But the timing is still right there.
Yeah.
And it's very integral into
Yeah.
what he's doing. Integral. some people would say.
Yeah.
Anyway, John, what do you think about the diversity in this filmmaking?
I think it's hot garbage. No, he is very diverse. I'm happy that he is a diverse director because there are some directors that they make good horror films or good sci-fi films. Some directors can't make that transition, and he's done well in every genre. And it feels like maybe he finds something like a book or a screenplay that he's passionate about and decides instead of passing on, I own a production company, I could get so-and-so to make it. If he likes it, it seems like he goes whole hog. It seems like he's passionate about a project, and you can tell. So I think he's a great director, and the diversity just comes from him being, and I wonder too, and this happens to me, I was playing guitar, and then I got out of it for a while, and then I got back into it. When I get into something, I get into it for a while. Whatever I'm in, I get into a hobby or whatever, and I go all in, and maybe I move on to something else, maybe a year later. He seems like he's the same person. Maybe he gains interest. Maybe the Black Hawk Down was a period where he was interested in realistic drama around military action. You know what I'm saying? I wonder if he gets into things and then loses interest. Maybe he lost interest in sci-fi. Maybe because obviously more recently he's rediscovered his love for the Alien franchise. You know what I'm saying? He came back to that. So I wonder if he just his attitude changes about things. I don't know. He's done very well in all those, and you can tell he definitely puts his heart into it.
I would definitely say that exactly what you were saying, but I think one of the things is not so much that he gets tired or just bored with a certain genre, but all he really cares about is what it can look like and the characters and where the characters can go. And it's his one thing that threads all these movies together is the visual style and the character style, to me.
But they're also all movies.
Yes, that as well. But I think it's great because a lot of directors get pigeonholed. Even directors that we really, really like. Like Steven Spielberg can make a few different types of movies, but most people remember him as the big summer popcorn.
Yeah, he's the popcorn flick guy.
He makes movies about aliens that we all love. The whole family can go see him. Things like that. Guy Ritchie, a great filmmaker, but if it's not
British crime drama,
if it's not
comedy.
A crime fiction noir type thing, it's a little bit different. So I think that part of the appeal is not just his diversity, but that he can seamlessly go from a Blade Runner to a Black Rain, from a disaster film like White Squall to an army film like G.I. Jane, which is about women and women empowerment, right? Mm-hmm. Thelma and Louise. Mm-hmm. But then to do something like Exodus, which is a big biblical epic, and legend, a fantasy movie that most people are like, wait, that was Ridley Scott? And then do classics like Blade Runner and Alien and all that shit in between. Like
Hannibal. We haven't even
mentioned Hannibal.
Yeah.
Body of Lies. Anyway, and it's the characters, and part of his I think one of his strengths in characterization is the villains. Right, John?
Oh, yeah. There's some great villains, actually. He's not only got some great leading characters, but he's got some great and iconic villains, actually. He's brought some villains to the big screen that memorable forever, actually.
Like Hannibal,
like you mentioned. And although he didn't start off as a Ridley Scott character, because obviously he's in Silence of the Lambs, but he did a good job fleshing out the Hannibal character. So I'd like to talk about your favorite villains, because he's definitely brought some great ones to the big screen, created some big ones that stand out. I'm going to start with Goldsmith. There are some villains that Ridley Scott has brought to the films that stand out in your mind that you really enjoy.
Well, Rutger Hauer, Blade Runner.
Roy Batty,
of course. One of the all-time greats. I think my favorite from all his movies is Peter Wayland. From Alien, of Weyland-Yutani, Weyland Corp. Played by Guy Pearce in Prometheus.
Were you at all upset that Guy Pearce plays the young and old version? Because I was like, why don't they just cast an old dude?
No.
Did you like the makeup? You thought it looked visually fine?
Yeah, it didn't look bad. Plus, he's like 120 or something like that. He's obscenely old.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the real Guy Pearce.
No.
Because the real Guy Pearce is, I think, much younger than that. I think he's in his late 40s.
That sounds right. But you're wearing the Wayland shirt.
Yeah, I've been showing it off for like 5 minutes.
Well, that's the wrong
bad radio.
Yeah, that's the wrong Wayland.
But I think if people were to get that old, I'm sure they would look cartoonishly old, like he did in that makeup.
Yeah. Okay.
But you think of him as a villain, even though he kind of kick-started the. You don't think he's a good. I mean, obviously he was kind of evil in his own way because he was only thinking about himself and finding more life. But at the same time, is he a villain in the same regard? Like
he knew about the alien.
He
knew
the
about
villain
these problems
of Prometheus.
Yeah,
he is for sure.
I mean,
I think so.
And
you don't think that big alien that attacks them at the end?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a part of it, but
well, he knew that was a threat, and he just sent him out there anyway and didn't tell him about it because he needed.
He's the villain.
The stuff. Yeah, he is even in Alien, in the original ones.
Yeah, the aliens are just basically like fingers for him. If that makes sense. Like, he's not directly responsible for him, but he is indirectly responsible for him.
Yeah,
which leads
he
him,
led them to the...
He's the villain. I can see that.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. What about you, Robbie?
Well, Roy Batty. Like, I mean, can anybody say that's not got to be named as one of the greatest villains of all time? Not just Ridley Scott films. Commodus.
Wild.
And Gladiator.
Is that
wild?
Joaquin
Right?
Phoenix's character?
Yes.
Yes.
And there are
great.
so many layers to that guy. And, like, you feel bad for him, and then at times you're like, what a little mother...
Yeah,
like,
he's
talk
about
serious?
being a dick.
In the director's cut, especially.
Exactly. But it's so engaging.
Yeah.
And Phoenix does such an amazing job in that role. And straight up, the xenomorph. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah.
The xenomorph is amazing. And if you want to count Frank Lucas as a villain...
He was a villain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Denzel Washington's performance is great. But the xenomorph, you got to mention that, right? And I haven't seen Covenant, like we said, but the neomorph looks really cool and scary. I've seen the pop figure. Straight up, the xenomorph is threatening. It is that image alone, which is what's that cat's name that designed that? Geiger?
H.R. Geiger.
Yeah, H.R. Yeah. That dude has an obsession with penis-looking things, but
yeah, very phallic.
the xenomorph from Alien has stood the test of time, just like the Boris Karloff Frankenstein making.
Oh yeah, it definitely has. It was in his style. I was gonna say Geiger's style has made it to other films, or
like
things been
Hellraiser.
Styled after that.
Yeah.
Look at the Batmobile from
With the
Val Kilmer Batmobile was inspired by H.R. Geiger
it was
stuff.
the Batman Forever.
So actually,
an underrated Batmobile.
Yeah.
Some lights, dude. Them lights were next level.
But
like Deanne Ward.
Yeah. Anyway, what about?
Nobody could see that, but I even gave a confused look after I said it.
We sort of derailed the ship here. Wait, are ships on rails? These ships are on.
Ridley Scott did a film about a ship. It was called
Alien.
1492
and 1492. But
what about you, Drew? Were there any villains you want to bring up, or ones that stand out in your mind?
I would like to talk about South African rap with the N-word. No,
God damn it!
These beats are next level.
No, some of the villains that stick out, of course, like the Xenomorph, a horrifying creature. Just you can never spot it until like the very end when it's like first unveiled. You're like, oh my god.
Well, fuck, his blood is acid.
Yeah, his blood is acid, and he's got two mouths. A mouth that shoots out.
Not fair.
Not fair. And Gladiator, of course, Commodus is so incredibly weird, but he's engaging, and especially in like the director's cut where he talks to him, like he just straight up tells his sisters like, "You're going to give me an heir," and it's like, wow, that's and woof.
Yeah, I didn't want to approach the incest bit of it. I found that to be the
Is it because we're based out of Alabama? You don't want to?
No, I just found that to be the least interesting part about that, but. I like how you said he was weird.
No, that's part of
straight up. It's awkward.
Like,
he's awkward.
Yeah, he's incredible. That's where that.
If
comes
they
from,
remake Gladiator, Michael Cera.
Oh God,
God damn it.
But Hannibal, Mason Verger, not even Hannibal.
Okay.
When people bring up like pigs, I get that scene from the very end of Hannibal, and I'm like, oh, just
okay.
And then in Kingdom of Heaven, the gruesome twosome of Renaud and Guy de Lusignan. Like they're very much like they have taken their holy crusade and they've turned it on. Like they're doing it for power, for profit. They're just killing innocents indiscriminately. They're incredibly powerful and evil.
Yeah, he's done some great villains. I don't really have more to add because you guys covered a lot of ones I want to talk about.
Really? What are your favorites, man? Come on.
My favorite by far is the Xenomorph, is the alien, or
nice.
The Neomorph, or one of the variations, either the Prometheus or Alien Covenant, the original
Queen,
Alien.
The Queen, was that in Aliens or Alien?
That was in Aliens.
Cubed.
That was Aliens.
Alien Cubed had a badass, like...
Yeah, but that was the Alien based on the dog alien or whatever. But that was not a Ridley Scott film, but still.
No, it's not. You're right.
The Aliens versus Predator penguin alien.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Those
but
aren't
and
canon.
Danny
Fuck those
DeVito
shitty films.
like controlled a whole army of them.
Oh my god.
but yeah, he's done some fantastic villains, and like you were saying, the director's cut gave us a lot more in Kingdom of Heaven, because the director's cut in generally gives us a lot more, because he's kind of known for his director's cuts, isn't he, Robbie?
Yes, actually. There's a lot of director's cuts nowadays, and sometimes they are appropriate, and sometimes they are not.
Sometimes they're just garbage.
Sometimes, like Mimic, which is a Guillermo del Toro film, they did a director's
Maybe not his best film.
They did a director's cut, and del Toro himself was like, "That's not the director's cut." And director's cut nowadays can mean almost anything, right? An extended version, just something longer, something with more like deleted scenes that were deleted for a reason.
Oh, yeah.
But Ridley Scott not only basically created the director's cut, he perfected the director's cut. Like, no director's cut is in better, more capable hands most times
Yes.
than Ridley Scott. So let's talk real quick about the difference between some of the director's cuts and the theatrical ones, and which ones stand out, which ones are most important. This was kind of Drew's idea. So Drew, why don't you start us off?
I mean, I guess there's ones that come out to your mind, because Blade Runner, of course, the first time,
right?
the first one that they said was the director's cut. Not actually the director's cut.
But they did take, in the studio's defense, they did take some notes of his, and they're like, "Oh, this is what he wanted," and then did a director's cut,
and they
without
really
him involved at all.
Yeah.
and it completely changed the film.
Yeah. But the one that I think changes more positively than any movie that I've ever seen is Kingdom of Heaven, because Kingdom of Heaven, when you see it in theaters or on TV, it's like, oh yeah, this is okay, I guess. But then you add like another hour to it, and then it changes it completely, and it's like very engaging. It tells this great story about two opposing but understandable sides of religions.
We were talking about that on the break, and how the movie is so good at portraying that. Even if you were like the most right-wing Christian American, you understand both sides of this movie. Yeah,
you understand more of the problems being a leper king, and you get to see more scenes with Ava Green, which is great because she's incredible in that movie. But yeah, I think that Ridley Scott is just a huge vision guy. So when you have to cut like 40 minutes to make the theatrical, I think that's why like it doesn't quite
I think
mesh.
This was one of those cases too where it wasn't that they didn't like his vision. I think they were like, "Oh shit, this runtime has to get down for people in the theaters." So I think that was not... There were some directors and studios that butt heads, but in this case, I think it was the studio was like, we just need to get the time down. It's not you, it's just that we need to get the time down. So in this particular case, that's what I think it was.
There was some headbutting there, though. Because,
there was on that one?
And it was because they did all these audience reaction screenings, these audience screenings beforehand, and people responded very negatively.
Oh, really?
So Ridley cut out 40 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And at the studio's behest. And of course, Ridley will play ball. And that's fine.
Yeah, he'll do that.
And he did it, and they released a movie. And I'll be honest, I think the theatrical cut is pretty decent. I really do.
For Kingdom?
Yeah, that's the first one that I saw, and I actually really do like it.
Yeah, like I didn't hate it.
And then when I saw the director's cut, it was like, whoa, this is a whole different movie. And that's the thing, too, is that he took criticism from the movie, and he ingrained that into his director's cut. And that's something he does in other movies. Like, he even did a director's cut of The Counselor.
Really?
Because The Counselor was not critically acclaimed when it came out. And he took criticisms and he made a director's cut. Even The Martian, he added 20 minutes back into the film.
I need to see that.
And it's his highest rated late career film, right?
It's just 20 minutes of Matt Damon and Ben Affleck playing chess.
Making
on Mars.
potatoes with his poo. But,
where did Ben Affleck come
I don't know
from?
how he got on Mars.
but I straight up, even there's even a director's cut of Alien, which he did after the fact, which actually shortens the film by a minute. Yeah. And it adds different scenes, and I don't really think that that's so much a director's cut as it is just, here's another version of it. But he does see the director's cut as not like George Lucas, or not like Steven Spielberg, where you're adding in walkie-talkies over guns, or you're adding in scenes and special effects that don't matter. The Blade Runner final cut, even when they added extra special effects, it really mattered.
Yeah,
really
he went in and
enhanced
said,
the film.
"Here's some things we couldn't do back then."
When he finished that movie, he said, "I finally got it right."
Yeah,
I finally got it right. What about you, John? What stands out to you? The director's cuts versus theatrical. What's the best one? What do you think?
It depends on the film. For example, not a Ridley Scott film, but Donnie Darko, I enjoy the theatrical more because I feel like the director's cut spoon feed stuff.
Yeah, it's very heavy-handed.
Yeah, and so it depends.
But it's a great thing to watch after the movie.
Yeah, and Ridley Scott does a good job, though. I think Ridley Scott, not only does he take good constructive criticism, but he's done some great job. He does a great job, and I don't think I've ever watched a Ridley Scott director's cut where I was like, oh, this is worse than the original. I always come away either learning more or enjoying the film more so. And I think the final cut, Blade Runner final cut, is a great version of that because he not only he put all the stuff back in that he wanted, but he went through and touched up, and it was minor things.
Yes.
Like again, like some of the visual effects again because
like
they were done.
He didn't replace all the models with
Yeah,
CG.
Right.
Yeah, he left a lot of the models, but he went and touched up things that he thought could be touched up now.
He even refilmed some stuff with the scene where the snake lady is like running across and like getting like she's running through the panes of glass and all that.
Mm-hmm.
They even reshot some of that stuff with the original actress with a wig and like CG'd it a little bit, but like he takes this as an opportunity to.
I heard the
actually
original
improve
actress wasn't available, so they used Tommy Lee Jones.
That's funny. Tommy Lee Jones was not
Is it
available.
funny?
Tommy Lee Jones was not available, so they used Josh Brolin.
Oh, okay.
Same guy.
And then Josh Brolin wasn't available, so they used, believe it or not, Will Smith. And then they CG'd it, and it was
God
fine.
damn it. Everybody just quit watching the show.
Yes, they did.
To the show at this point in
They're
time.
listening to it. But anyway, Justin, what about what do you have to say on this subject?
In my opinion, there should not ever be a need for a director's cut because that's what the studios hire the directors for is to make the damn movie.
You know that.
No,
Yeah,
No,
absolutely
No, the movie that comes out in the theater should be the director's cut.
It'll never be that way, but I see what you're saying.
It shouldn't.
Yes.
It should be that way, but it's not.
world.
If you're confident
take-
enough to hire a director, you should give the director the control.
To take Blade Runner
Marvel,
as an
take
example,
Yeah. DC, take no.
Yeah, DC
More
really
so.
take note.
Yeah.
You just wrecked your whole goddamn franchise. Go ahead. That's a different podcast.
to use Blade Runner as an example, because there are 5 different cuts of the movie.
There are 84 different cuts.
And I think it's an interesting exercise to watch all 5 cuts.
Yeah, and I still haven't.
Yeah. You should.
I still haven't seen the
They're
original
all 5
theatrical
available
cut.
in that deluxe Blu-ray
Yeah,
set.
I
I
have
don't think
that.
you can. You
I have it.
I have it.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's expensive as shit if you don't have it.
I have it.
I think
It's gotten really expensive.
it's the one with the unicorn on the front, right? Yeah, 'cause
No, you have the
It
box
is.
set that has the unicorn
Yeah.
on it.
I used to have the briefcase, but then I got a Blu-ray and I didn't get the briefcase. I had the origami and all that. Oh,
Yeah.
that movie though.
Yeah, if you've got the Blu-ray that's like the 5 different versions, that's out of print. And
We're
it's
off
gone
topic.
out.
What were you saying?
my point, my point being that there shouldn't have to be a need for a director's cut is that it's their movie, whether or not the studio pays for it. It gets so screwed up. Like the theatrical version of Blade Runner that came out first was so different from his vision of the film.
Yes. And even in recordings, when Harrison Ford is doing that voiceover,
Yeah,
there are cut scenes where he's just like, "This is dumb.
yeah,
This
yeah.
Not
is
into
so
it.
dumb. Why am I doing this?"
Yeah, and like the studio just said, "We want this."
You're saying fuck director's cuts. Studios listen to your...
I'm not saying fuck director's cuts because that's the director's chance to actually make the movie as they wanted it to be.
You're saying there shouldn't be a director's cut. There should be one cut.
It
It should be
should
what the
be-
director envisioned in the first place. So there should only
the studio
be,
shouldn't mess with the
yeah,
director.
there should be no
vision
theatrical cut.
or the producers or whoever. It's the director should have the final say on everything. That's the difference between the theatrical and director's cuts.
I see what you're saying about having the director's vision out at once, but if you tell me that in 2,000 movie theaters that I'm going to sit for 3 hours and watch Gladiator, I am not going to watch it.
Well, if you don't want to watch a 3-hour movie, then don't go to a 3-hour movie.
But you give it to me at home, I'll watch it and I'll buy it, and
I
it's
get
the
that
same
too.
price as the
And
movie.
Look what Peter Jackson did with Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Like, people were down for that. Like, you won't go to the movie theater. You maybe will watch a 3-hour movie, but you will not watch a 4-hour movie.
no. Well, yeah, that's why Kingdom of Heaven's 3 hours 10 minutes. I cannot sit in a movie like maybe now with
That's
like
the
the seats that
director's cut.
recline. Yeah, with the seats that recline, I could do the director's cut in
I'll
theater.
fall asleep, dude. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I
Bring
fell
back
asleep.
the intermission.
I fell asleep in Doctor Strange, homie. Okay, and that movie's like 90 minutes. Okay?
Yeah, I was about to say not that long.
Ever since theaters put in the reclining seats, like, I'm out. I'm done.
and they bring you warm milk to your seat.
That's why we go to the theater
turkey.
with the narrowest seats, and they don't recline back.
Hollywood.
Yes. That's why. And Hollywood 18 does not sponsor.
But if they want to
This
sponsor the
podcast,
show,
Regal Cinemas,
Regal
we're here
Cinemas,
for you.
Yeah.
No
we love
free-
your theater.
No, I
No free
get-
ads.
I get what you guys are saying, and I think that a lot of, like, I think Blade Runner is one of the most important, like, director's cuts in
Yeah.
cinema.
Well, we need to
'Cause
distinguish because the director's cut was the one that came out in '92, and the final cut.
final
Yeah, but the
cut.
final cut is actually the director's
I
cut.
like
Ridley's
that they call,
version.
yeah, because the studio or whoever I forget who, still
Warner
screwed
Brothers.
with it.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers still screwed with that cut in 92.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you guys, and the first cut I ever saw of Blade Runner was the director's cut, the 92 one, right?
Which, not bad.
And then I watched the theatrical cut, and I was like, oh, yeah, I don't like it as much. I really, really don't. And it just, it's heavy. Like you were talking about how Donnie Darko, the director's cut explains too much.
Yeah.
That's exactly...
Yeah.
It's like Stan Lee wrote the theatrical cut of Blade Runner, and he is narrating what is obviously happening on screen.
Yeah.
And like...
I'm getting in my car. I'm turning the car on.
Ridley Scott trusts his audience, and his studio doesn't always trust his audience. But I think they should trust him because he's given us some of the greatest moments in film. Don't you think, John?
Some of the greatest moments. He's got an eye for directing, they would say.
That young whippersnapper.
Yeah, he's got some moments that definitely stand out in moments I'd say iconic moments in film history. Go look up like Ridley Scott scenes or favorite scenes or best scenes, whatever, like on YouTube. You'll get all these scenes that people have cut from Blu-rays or DVDs or whatever, and they'll just talk about specific scenes that really stand out. Because again, he's Ridley Scott, man. He's Ridley fucking Scott. So are there any scenes that stick out in your mind? I'll start with Drew. Is there any that stand out? Any movies in specific or any scenes, specifically any films that just in your mind are iconic or stand out to you?
Well, I know you guys will go in depth in the Tears in the Rain from Blade Runner, so I'll leave that to y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
that is an iconic.
I won't take that, but there's a collage of moments from Gladiator, like his forest fight scenes. Sometimes the frost makes the blade stick, where he escapes from the Praetorians. Then my name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, that whole speech I did earlier. But there's a ton of that and like huge moments in Gladiator. That's why it won 1 million awards. And then Kingdom of Heaven at the very beginning, the first like big fight scene in the forest where it has all the heavy hitters and and really kind of you don't recognize him at first, but Carl Urban playing like a Viking. And with dual axes, takes an arrow through the throat and just keeps on trucking.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, and after he taught Orlando Bloom how to use a sword, it's a wild fight scene. I love those.
Yeah, absolutely. Steven Spielberg was actually in that movie as well in a little bit role.
And so is Daniel Craig as one of the stormtroopers. What about you, Robbie? Are there specific scenes? I think Blade Runner might come up.
Tears in Rain.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's the greatest.
Yeah.
That's my favorite scene in a movie ever. When he's like, these memories will fade in time, like these tears in rain, and he dies, and then releases the dove. Oh my God! Like that, cinema does not get more perfect than that. But a couple others. You mentioned Gladiator, the death of Marcus Aurelius.
Yes.
That whole scene with him and Commodus, and he's like, Commodus, you go too far. Richard Harris is amazing in that movie.
OG Dumbledore.
That's my
big ups.
Dumbledore. My Dumbledore. And Gambon is awesome.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But Richard Harris, I wish he would have done all those Harry Potter movies. But that scene in particular, because there's so much emotion there. There's so much tragedy. And Commodus is not just your typical villain.
No.
Like, he's got so many layers to him, right? and he's a weak villain.
That scene is so tense because you know something's up with this Commodus dude.
And it hurts him to do what he does
And
when he kills his own father.
And then in that director's cut, he like attacks the statue.
Which is argued in history, but Ridley Scott doesn't care about history, like we were talking about. And one more thing is, in American Gangster, when the moment when Denzel Washington's character just shoots that dude
in front of everybody?
Yes.
Holy fuck, man.
That moment really set me back, and that really kind of happened. And it just shows people that are in that level of crime, that's how it is.
Oh, yeah.
Up until
just
then,
kill
though,
somebody in
does
public
it make
and
me a
nobody will do
shitty
it?
person that I'm almost compassionate for this guy? I'm like, look, he took an opportunity and he's helping his family.
He's an
and
entrepreneur.
He does that shit, and I'm like, oh, never mind.
He did go to Vietnam. He did all the legwork.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
he's a very smart fella.
He is, but that moment is very stunning to me.
Oh, yeah. And people in front of everybody, too. Jesus. Goldsmith, are there some scenes that stand out in your mind?
Speaking of in front of everybody.
Yeah. Put your pants back on, Goldsmith, and answer this fucking question.
Fine. I think my favorite moment from The Martian is like when he realizes how fucked he is, and like he starts doing the video journal, and he says, "I got to science the shit out of this."
That was the moment that he realized he had fucked up.
Yeah, like because I love that whole story. The Martian is one of my favorite movies from the last 10 years.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's a great film, man.
Mm-hmm.
It gets overlooked as a Ridley Scott film.
Yeah.
Because of stuff like Blade Runner and Alien.
Yeah.
And
but
Prometheus
it's
or whatever.
really good. And I'm going to bring it up even though it wasn't from a movie, but the Mac commercial is one of the most important.
The 84 one or the Nissan? Which one?
The
We didn't bring up the Nissan
Apple
commercial he did.
I don't
It was
remember that one.
Really iconic.
The Big Brother one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with the screen in the background. Everybody's seen it. It's just, it was a turning point in advertising
Yes.
and pop culture.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a huge commercial, and it was, especially, too, for him to come back and be like, oh, I do commercials. Like, no, I'm a big director now. Like, I'll come back and do this little commercial for this little company called Apple.
And then obviously Tears in the Rain. And
Yes.
every scene with neon lights in that movie is my favorite.
Yes. Just when he's eating ramen. That's a great scene.
Yeah, like
Yes.
almost as much as Tears in the Rain. It's just him walking around eating ramen.
You guys covered a lot of great ones. I'm going to add two more in there. Number one was, and this actually was my favorite scene, and I was trying to find the scene on YouTube, and coincidentally is Ridley Scott's favorite scene from Blade Runner. It's the scene where Deckard first meets Rachel. So he does, in the audience doesn't know whether or not she's a replicant or anything about replicants at that point in time. It's still early in the film, and she's so beautiful, and he first meets her, and he's asking those questions, and he's got that machine or whatever. So that's a really awesome scene. And then another one that stands out, and this is a part of pop culture in general, the alien bursting out of the chest. Alien.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah.
Why didn't nobody say that? You're right.
It seriously is, even if you're not...
Was that Ian Holm that it busted out of, or was John Hurt?
John Hurt.
It was John
Yeah,
Hurt.
it's John Hurt.
Yeah.
Even if you're, again,
Because he's
even
in
if you're not
Spaceballs.
in... Yes. Even if you're not
Hello,
in...
Mahoney.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And they tied it together with the Warner Brothers frog.
Yeah, the Warner Brothers-
so
Oh my
genius.
God.
Yeah, even if you're not a big fan of Alien or horror films or Ridley Scott, you know the scene, man. It's cemented in pop culture, and it's been spoofed, like you said. It's been referenced in other science fiction films, and when you first see it, it is pretty fucking horrifying too.
Yeah.
Because he just gets up and he's obviously like ill, and you're like, did he eat something bad?
Yeah, right?
Oh no, not exactly. So yeah, and then whenever I get sick, I always think that's what's going to happen. Maybe I'm a hypochondriac? What do you call that?
Hypochondriac.
I can't even remember what it's called. Yeah, I'll have like some bad eggs or fish or something like, oh, do I have an alien in my baby? In my belly?
Do I have an alien in my baby?
Have you been fucked by a space crab
I was
lately?
thinking of Prometheus, actually, when she had to have that's fucked up too, man. That whole fucking thing where she gets the abortion.
It is, yes.
Yeah. So I should bring that one up. Talk about fucked up space scenes. Jesus. Anyway. Iconic scenes. He's a great director, and yeah, those are definitely some great moments. So that was our favorite moments from Ridley Scott films. And I think we're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about our top 5 Ridley Scott films, and we're going to go to social media and see what you kids said about your favorite films by Ridley Scott. We're right back. Pop Culture Philosophers.
Hey guys, Rockin' Robbie here. I want to talk to you real quick about the Huntsville Comic and Pop Culture Expo coming up here in Huntsville, Alabama, February 24th and 25th, 2018. It's going to be a real fun time. Us, the Pop Culture Philosophers, will be there, so come on, meet us, greet us. We'll talk to you. We'll shake your hands. We'll do all that stuff. Also, famed comic book artist Mark Bagley will be there. Jermaine Funny Mane Johnson, comedian, will be there. Comic book artist and inker Joe Rubenstein will be there. Kevin Sorbo from Hercules, The Legendary Journeys will be there. Austin St. John and Johnny Young Bosch from Power Rangers will be there, as well as comic book artist John Beatty and Mike Zeck of Punisher fame, and Fabian Nicieza, comic book writer and co-creator of the character Deadpool. So lots of excitement, great lineup. It's going to be a blast, a grand time at the VBC North Hall, February 24th and 25th, 2018 in Huntsville, Alabama, the Huntsville Comic and Pop Culture Expo.
Welcome back to Pop Culture Philosophers. We're talking about Ridley Scott, if you recall. And I think Robbie reached out to people on social media, and I think you asked them their favorite Frosty flavor. No. I think you asked them your favorite Ridley Scott film, and I think Frosty's only come in the chocolate, right? Maybe there's a vanilla. That's a different podcast.
Yeah, basically, the overwhelming consensus is that chocolate. is their favorite Ridley Scott film. Wait. No, that was the wrong one. No, we thank you guys for checking us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Pop Culture Philosophers, Rockin, Robbie, Billups. We got some interesting answers tonight. The overwhelming consensus is, we'll get to it. James Donahoe from Janky Review says Alien. Matt Gibson of Pixel Perfect says Legend and Gladiator.
I'm surprised anybody said Legend. I'm not knocking Legend. I was just surprised to see
Legend
that.
and Gladiator. Clint McWilliams says American Gangster.
Great film.
Ooh, nice. Jim Costello says White Squall, the disaster film starring Jeff Bridges, man, from the 80s.
I love Jeff Bridges, man.
Dude, most original answer. You got that, Jim. Thank you. Dylan Sullivan said Alien and Legend. It's a tie, but he actually said Aliens, to which Ted Stafford corrected him and said,
out.
yeah.
He's like, I meant Alien. I saw that he's like,
and when I saw Dylan this morning, he was like, you know that I understand that Aliens is a different film. I understand. We've all made that mistake. Alan Foster, speaking of mistakes, just joking, guy. Anyway, he said Blade Runner. Carl Kowalski, the author that he is, great dude. I love this guy so much. He said The Counselor.
Oh, okay. Surprise. Good film.
Still haven't seen that movie, homie. Actually, I need to check it out. Clem Urban said Alien. Paul Drew said Blade Runner is one of the best films ever made. But
not arguing with him.
But so is Alien. He said he also thinks that Gladiator is highly overrated.
Ooh.
Punk.
Paul Edwards said Alien. Andre Wakefield said Alien, though I haven't seen a lot of his other films, to be honest with you. Mike Billups, no relation, just kidding. Total relation, my cousin. He said Gladiator. Absolutely, I love Gladiator. You got something to say to Paul Drew, I guess. Speaking of relations, Debbie Haygood, my sister, said Hannibal. There's your Hannibal reference.
Sleeper.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, Sleeper. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I don't like it. To be honest with you, I really don't. Anyway, Brian Weaver, he was on the show on the Jack Kirby podcast. B-Dub said Blade Runner. Brandon Whaley said Alien. Trent Henley said Gladiator. Actually, he put up a picture of Commodus with the thumb. I assume that was Gladiator. Lance Allen from Dance Panda Comics working on some stuff with me, including Black Spec and some unannounced things coming up very, very soon. Lance is a great dude. He said Gladiator. Gladiator, one of his favorite. Gladiator, more mentions than Blade Runner.
I'm surprised more than Alien and Blade Runner.
Jeremy Day. We all know Jeremy Day, right? Mm-hmm. Jeremy said Alien and Thelma and Louise. Nice picks. David Bass said,
is that all one title? Is that a sequel I missed?
Yeah,
Alien and Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, that's actually
I would watch that.
That's Ridley Scott's next film.
I would watch that.
And he had cast Kevin Spacey in it.
But oh shit, we didn't bring that.
Just joking.
Well,
Anyway, David Bass had a conversation with me. Said, "You're telling me to pick the best film out of my favorite director, like my best god out of the pantheon. Like you're asking me to commit heresy." And he narrowed it down to 6. He said Alien, Blade Runner, Legend, Black Hawk Down, Gladiator, Thelma and Louise.
Not even a top 5. He gave me 6.
And then he said, admittedly, Legend is the worst of those movies. And then the best answer of the night is from David Hatch, who happens to be our first Patreon supporter. And it's not because he is our first Patreon supporter that he gets the best answer of the night. His best answer of the night is the best answer of the night because he said Alien. Also, Apple's 1984 Super Bowl ad.
He caught up the ad.
Thank you guys for checking us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at The PCP Show, Pop Culture Philosophers.
So that was social media, and now we're going to get to the heart of the show, the meat of the show, the potatoes of the... Wait,
no, we
potatoes
did
of
the
show.
Potatoes.
Now to the meat.
We did the peas and carrots.
Yes. Now we're getting to the meat of your choice. Chicken, bacon, fish.
Tofu.
Oh, yeah, for you vegans, vegetarians.
Seitan.
So we're going to do
What? Hail Seitan. What?
We're going to do our top... I'm just going to leave. We're going to do our top 5. So these are our favorite films. And they're not always we're saying, hey, these are the best films. We're saying these are our favorite films from his...
favorite versus best. Yeah. We could do a whole podcast about that.
And I could probably do a top 10 or even a top 15 because I think he's a very accomplished, very great director.
I could do a top 20.
But I do have some that, in my mind, I enjoy more.
This is one of the easiest top 5s I've ever done, to be honest with you.
Really?
Same.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For me.
Yeah. I love Ridley Scott, but 5 to pick out was easy, to a point.
I'm going to jump over to Goldsmith and start with you, your top 5 in reverse order. Sir, if you could give me your top 5 Ridley Scott films. And we're talking about directed. He produces a lot of stuff. He's been involved with a lot of films. He obviously owns a production company. But we're talking about films directed
Home
by
Alone
Sir
Home Alone
Ridley
doesn't
Scott.
count.
No, I almost screwed up earlier. I was thinking Blade Runner 2049.
I blew his mind
and
in the
then
first break.
I was like, wait a minute. Oh my God, you're right. It's the new Ridley Scott, Dennis Villeneuve.
He's the new Ridley Scott?
Danny V.
That's a very good compliment.
Is Danny
Yeah.
V new Ridley Scott?
He is.
That's his name.
Yes. My number 5, though, I decided on Prometheus.
Oh, great film. I think underrated.
Yeah, very underrated.
Beautiful, visually.
I didn't think we'd have that mentioned.
Visually stunning film.
Yeah, that's one of the main reasons.
And a great cast.
Yeah, the cast. It's well acted and beautifully cinematographed.
Were you disappointed it was not a traditional alien film, was more a traditional sci-fi film? Because I think people had weird expectations, but it's a great film.
One of my favorite things about it was that it was rumored, like there was conjecture going on that it was going to be part of the alien universe.
Which it is.
And then at the very, very end, you see that Wayland Corp box. And you're like, oh, it is.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, even in the beginning, there's the one.
No, it was at the end.
What? Prometheus?
Yeah.
It's Wayland that sends them there. Isn't it Wayland that dies?
Yeah, but that's like towards the end.
Yeah, but the reveal is at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's clearly... What do you mean the reveal is at the end? It's Wayland.
You don't see Wayland or hear Wayland until the very end.
No, he's in the beginning. He even instructs them. He's the image. There's like a CG image of him.
But the reveal that he is...
Wayland. Yeah, you don't know his name.
Okay. Well, I thought it was pretty forward that it was... Okay. Anyway, great film. Your number 4. I guess we sidetracked. Your number 4.
Number 4 is Gladiator.
Oh,
Gladiator made your top 5.
Yeah, nice. Why is that?
Because I'm going to be quite honest, it's been 6 or 7 years since I've seen it, but I remember loving it, and Russell Crowe is really good in that role, and Joaquin Phoenix, the thumb thing. It's a really good movie.
They both do a fantastic job, and visually, it's an amazing film.
That's another reason. His visuals are always important to me.
Your number 3?
My number 3 is The Martian.
Oh, Matt Damon.
Very nice.
Sir Matt Damon. No, he's not.
No.
He's not British.
That'd be impressive.
Nor Knight.
Yeah. But a great film. I'm surprised it made anybody's top 5. I'm not saying it's not worthy of top 5, and it's a great film. I was just surprised.
I love the story, and there's a few characters. I mean, there's not very many characters in the movie, but the ones that are there are really good. And I just love the idea of, surviving, forcing his will onto Mars.
Planet.
Yeah.
Your number 2?
My number 2 is Alien.
Alien, the original Alien.
Yep.
Just there's no confusion. Not Aliens, Alien Cubed, Alien Resurrection.
Correct.
Great film, a horror film, not a sci-fi film. It's maybe set in space, maybe have a science fiction backdrop, but it's a horror film.
Maybe a sci-fi horror.
Yeah. Just like there's romantic comedies, you can have 2 classifications.
Like Event Horizon.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Imagine Ridley Scott doing a remake of that. Anyway, number 2, Alien.
And your number 1, your favorite Ridley Scott film. This isn't.
Number 2. Why Alien though? Right?
I thought he said why.
Did he?
Did he not mention it?
Why?
Yeah.
Because, it kind of made its own genre. There wasn't space horror before that. So there you go. And
2001.
And it's beautiful.
The third act is space horror.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. But it's also really cool. All the models.
Maybe it's like
Still beautiful cinematography.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
It holds up visually. It holds up quite well for being miniatures because there wasn't CG obviously back then.
Yeah.
Or if it was very used.
There was CG, but his name was Carl Graves.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say it was used very.
But he was the best damn key grip.
Very
in the
little. God damn it. And now I want to know.
His son was the negative cutter, and he was amazing, but not as good as Mo Henry.
I want to know your number 1. Damn it, shut up. Your number 1, your favorite Ridley Scott film.
It's a no-brainer. It's Blade Runner.
It's Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
One of the most beautiful movies ever filmed.
Yes.
One of the best soundtracks of all time.
Yes.
The world that they built for that, all the neon lights and everything is so compacted in on itself, but it's still this very lonely detective noir feel to it.
What is the definitive version to you?
The final cut.
Okay, I agree.
Which might be the definitive version.
It's the
Ridley
final.
Scott
Yeah,
agrees.
Ridley Scott thinks so. So if you're listening,
That's
Ridley,
a great top 5, dude. You got some prizes in there with Prometheus,
Yeah.
Gladiators in there. Yeah.
You didn't even think The Martian was going to be in it.
I was really surprised by The Martian more than anything. And I enjoyed the film. Don't get me wrong. I just, I didn't see that till way after the fact. But I enjoyed the film. I'm still upset that it was in the comedy category or whatever for the Oscars, which is a bunch of bullshit. But I don't know whose idea that was. I doubt it was Ridley's idea. And if it was, I applaud you for being snarky, son of a bitch. But if it was somebody else's idea, then it's a bad idea. Robbie, I'm going to jump to you since I'm going to go clockwise. Nobody can see this, but we're sitting in a giant clock.
I'm actually completely in a different room.
You're number 5. If you can narrow it down to top 5. I know this was, you said this was an easy one for you.
It was an easy one to a point because I know your favorite. I have an honorable mention.
Oh, God damn it.
Honorable mention to Thelma and Louise.
Okay.
Great film. Do you like the ending? Because I love it.
It's an interesting ending.
And it's a very important film. You need to go back and watch it nowadays.
It's a big part of pop culture as well.
Yes, it is. How many times has that ending been goofed?
Yeah.
Into other things, you know? It's just...
That's how Goldsmith and I are going to go out.
Number 5 came from 2015. It's The Martian.
Nice.
So The Martian made your top 5 as well.
I love this film, man. Matt Damon is great. Jessica Chastain.
Great.
Is amazing. Yeah. Donald Glover, like you said. Everybody in that movie.
Who plays the NASA
is it
boss?
Jeff Daniels?
Jeff Daniels.
Jeff Daniels, yes.
The director.
Yeah. The whole cast is incredible, but Ridley Scott works with great... I mean, he's picky, and he's got great...
A lot of what Ridley does is takes other people's ideas and gives them a vision that the original source never even had. I've never read the book by Andy Weir.
Me neither.
I hear it's really good. But the movie is really, really good, right?
Yeah.
And I love that film so much.
What's your number 4?
My number 4 comes from 2001. Right after he won the Best Picture for Gladiator, he decided to do Black Hawk Down.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
I love this film so much. Talk about cast. Josh Hartnett, Ian McGregor, Eric Bana, in his best performance that I've ever seen, outside of Hulk.
I want to say if you're listening and you own a digital surround sound system, buy Black Hawk Down on Blu-ray.
But that's another thing about Ridley's film is that they're not just visually stunning, but every single bit of it. He is so meticulous. Sound design is so important to him. Sound design is more important to Ridley Scott than the story.
Yeah.
And it stands out in some films, and sometimes films are very cliche of his. Black Hawk Down is amazing. It's from a book by Mark Bowden, who was actually there during the actual events of Black Hawk Down. Was it Mogadishu?
Yeah, Mogadishu.
Yeah. And
he was a reporter? He was one of the troops?
He was one of the troops.
Oh.
That's a real thing, right?
Yeah, I know it's based on real events. I just didn't know it was...
And the History Channel did a documentary about that when the movie came out, and it's actually on the Blu-ray and the DVD extended cut. Yeah, it's actually on there. And it's amazing. Apparently he did a really good job. Plus, don't forget, Justin Timberlake's in this movie.
It's true.
I did forget.
I was going to say. That's my number 4. I love that movie.
What's your number 3?
1979, Alien.
Oh, so Alien did make your top 5.
Of course it did. It's a great film. I love it. I think it's great. It's got a great cast. You got Sigourney Weaver. You got Tom Skerritt, who also made massive implications into pop culture with picket fences. But you also got Harry Dean Stanton, R.I.P., John Hurt, R.I.P., and Ian Holm. Right?
Yeah,
fantastic
it's a great cast.
Still
fantastic
kicking.
Cast. It's a haunted house film in space. They're in a haunted house.
Yeah.
Sure.
There's a ghost running around trying to kill him. It's a slasher film as well. And it's a sci-fi film. Like, indubitably so. It's a sci-fi film. So it's all these genres mixed together. And it's just such an astounding moment in film. Don't forget about Dan O'Banion doing the script, though. Amazing work there.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal film.
Yeah.
And what's your number? Are we on 2?
Well, yeah, because we're doing favorites, not best. My number 2 is Gladiator from 2000.
Oh, so Gladiator made your top 5
yeah,
as well.
Russell Crowe, Joaquin Phoenix, Richard Harris. What's his name? I'm going to mess this up. Housen. What's his name? Dijimu Housen. What's the
Jimin Hunsu.
Yes. That dude is awesome in that movie. Seriously, so good. Connie Nielsen.
Yeah.
Who plays, she's great. Oliver Reed is in that movie.
Yes.
The guy that was in all those Hammer films, American Werewolf in London, or not American Werewolf in London, but Werewolf of, whatever. He's in the werewolf film. Curse of the Werewolf. That's right. That's what it is. And it's a great film. I love it. I worked at the theater when that movie came out.
So did I. With you, in fact.
Yeah. And I watched that movie so much that I can quote it when I watch it. I love it. I recently rewatched it. I didn't think that structurally or thematically it held up as much as I thought it did. But it's still my number 2 favorite. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I love that movie. Russell Crowe, his performance, the whole theme about... This whole thing is about him wanting anybody else would have him win the gladiator matches, become the emperor, get with the princess, right? And right, but they don't do that. This whole movie is leading to him meeting his family in the afterlife.
That's all he wants.
And
Spoiler alerts for people.
The hand on the grain, Hans Zimmer doing the score.
Great
Everything
score.
about the movie is so brilliant to me.
It's a great film, and he does. Yeah, it was one of those films that when I saw the promo poster, I remember working at the theater with you and seeing the promo poster.
We were
and I'm like, well, I like Russell Crowe, but I'm not really into that part of history. It doesn't really interest me. The one I saw was a Ridley Scott film. I'm like, okay, I'm on board.
Yes,
I'm
completely opposite history-wise for me.
Oh, number one, your favorite Ridley Scott film. I have a feeling it rhymes with Schmade Schmunner.
It's obvious. It's Blade Runner, 1982, a year that will go down as one of the best years in sci-fi film history.
Yeah.
And we'll do a whole podcast about that year.
Just 1982.
We'll do a whole podcast about that year because this movie's amazing. The music by Vangelis is so haunting.
This is, in fact, your favorite sci-fi film, period,
yes,
is it not?
Yes.
Okay.
The only thing behind it is 2001. And if you know me, you know I love sci-fi. And those two are like... watching Blade Runner is like reading the Bible to me. I'm not even kidding, man. It's like... 2001's the Old Testament, Blade Runner's the New Testament. Does that make sense? That's how I feel about it. Harrison Ford, Rutger Hauer, Sean Young in an awkward performance, but it works because like her and Harrison Ford didn't like each other, and it comes across in that movie, but it works and it's so crazy. Edward James Olmos in that movie.
Yeah.
It's so subtle. Everything about that movie is so subtle, but it is so in your face, including the music. And Ridley Scott, we haven't talked about it a lot. He knows how to use music in his films. And Blade Runner is the epitome of that.
Oh, yeah.
Me. That's my top 5, though, man.
That's a great top 5. I knew Blade Runner was going to make the list.
Oh, it's number 1, man.
So, but that's a great top 5, man. I'm surprised that you were able to get it down to top 5, and of course you had a fucking runner-up, so you got down to top 6. Right. I'm interested to hear what Drew has in his top 5. I have a feeling that Kingdom of Heaven's going to make the top 5.
Sure will.
And go ahead and give me your top 5 in reverse order, if you could, starting with number 5.
Number 5, The Martian.
The Martian made your list.
Of course it did. It was probably Matt Damon's best movie since Good Will Hunting.
Well, I know you're a big Matt Damon fan. People at home can't see it.
Do you not like the Bourne movies?
A Matt Damon tattoo.
I think The Martian's better.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get to that in after hours.
It is better. Okay. But yeah.
But and it's already higher up on the list of movies for him because Sean Bean doesn't die.
What?
Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right.
I love Sean Bean, and he doesn't die
That's
in The
only
Martian.
film he doesn't die.
It's like that and Silent Hill, oddly enough.
Yeah.
Number 4.
Number 4, I have Blade Runner.
Oh, all the way down.
All the way down
to number 4.
Yep.
Holy shit! I'm more excited to see your number 3, 2, and 1. But Blade Runner, why did it make your top 5?
Blade Runner, it's incredibly visually stunning, and it's stunning in most ways. I think I'm higher into history. Like, if you know me, like I'm huge history. Like I love ancient history. I'm less into just his vision of the future than I am into other movies like that. But it's still like it's so important to anyone who decided to pick up a camera after that. And that's why it's culturally significant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Visual, it oozes with style.
It oozes with Ridley Scott style.
Yeah. It is the most Ridley Scott movie.
Agreed.
Okay, you're number 3, I think we're at, right?
There's Kingdom of Heaven.
Kingdom of Heaven.
Director's cut.
There it is.
Number 3.
Director's cut.
I almost wanted to put that in my top 5, dude.
And this goes back to the history thing with me. I love the Crusades era, and especially love this movie because it paints everyone there. Well, especially the opposing side, the Islamic forces, in like a favorable light. Like Saladin is one of my favorite generals and kings in history, and he's so cool. Like when they finally capture the 2 villains that I talked about earlier, Reynald and Guy de Lusignan, he hands the king a cup of ice water carried down from the mountains, and he passes it off to this horrible, this butcher, this horrible person, and he turns and is like, I didn't give you the cup, and has him beheaded.
Yeah.
and there's so many little things, and a wide cast over an incredibly long movie.
I was really struggling because I was like, I think I'm going to be the only person to mention Kingdom of Heaven tonight, so I got to put it in my top 5. But then I saw your Facebook post over the last 24 hours, and I was like, I think Drew's got us covered. And it's one of the only films that I have both a Blu-ray and a DVD for.
Yeah,
because the Blu-ray doesn't have like a lot of the extra features.
Really?
Does the Blu-ray is it only the director's cut? Is it only the theatrical?
I think the one I have is just director's cut.
Yeah, so I kept both of them just in case.
I don't know if they have like a mega edition.
I'm so glad you said that, man.
Yeah. 2, I have Alien. I mean,
number 2.
Yes.
Whoa! What?
I'm excited to
I'm
hear
so
your number 1.
confused
But
right
why did Alien make your top 5?
Why did it make number 2?
Specifically, why is it? Yeah.
2 because it is one of the scariest sci-fi movies ever made.
Yes.
You have this boogeyman going around.
And he's slimy.
He's slimy. If you try and hurt him, he bleeds and his blood will kill you. He has a tiny mouth. And it's like, oh, you're out of his
tiny
range.
mouth.
That's got a tiny
tiny second mouth. If you're like, oh, I got away from him, no, it just shoots out and gets you. And he spends a lot of time not on just Sigourney Weaver until later in the movie. But it builds and builds, and towards the end, everything's just going wild. She's trying to save this cat. Gets her in trouble.
Well,
that's one of the best Ridley Scott
this
characters.
whole goddamn podcast, I've been trying to remember the name of the cat. What was the cat's name?
I just watched it. I
The cat name
can't
was
remember.
Scott Free.
Another Mr. Miracle.
Garfield.
I'm gonna look it up.
Look it up as
that
we
was
get
your
to number 1.
Yeah, your number 2. I want to hear I'm excited to hear your number 1. I expected it.
I've been talking
one of
about it
those.
all night, man. It's Gladiator.
Oh, okay. It is Gladiator.
Air horn. No, I love Gladiator because, of course, I love Roman history, and Russell Crowe is an incredibly sympathetic figure. He's a great leader of men, and I love that it's not just simply like a sword and sandals. It is a movie about morality. He goes through this movie.
Amen.
He has a very it's like what you do in life will echo in eternity. It's like act the best and you will receive the best. Commodus, on the other hand, wants what he wants now. Like he'll kill his father to get it. He'll do horrible things to his sister. Like he wants everything now. He does not care about the afterlife. Whereas,
or any repercussions. He's
an emperor. He does not care.
This movie, though, is about the repercussions of our actions into eternity.
Yeah.
Even if it's the afterlife or its history. Yeah.
And there's so many, like every fight scene is great. It's one of the best choreographed fight scenes. Like every Gladiator scene, especially the one with the chariots going around. And then you have the incredibly stylistic, the music with Hans Zimmer, and like I'll just like pop off with like random quotes from that all the time. Like when they're doing the chariot scene, I'll be diamond. They all move as one, and the big battle scenes, man, I just love it.
That's
it is
crazy,
an epic
man.
film, man. It is an epic film.
Yeah, it was like whoa, you can do this in like an ancient like it's one of the best like historical from that period since like Ben-Hur.
Yeah. I'm very surprised that you rank it higher than Alien and Blade Runner. Actually,
That's
It's higher than Gladiator.
it's even higher than Gladiator. What was the cat's name?
Jones.
Jones.
Jones the cat.
Yeah.
Jonesy, yeah.
Speaking of Jonesy the cat, what about you, John? What's your top 5?
I want to know.
My number 5, Prometheus. I love
Prometheus. Wow.
I also made my top 5, just like
Same.
Goldsmith. It's a great visual film. It's a great cast. There are some people complain about the scientists doing stupid shit.
They some
but
dumbass scientists, man. I'm just going to say
it moves
that.
the story along. I mean, you have to because you got to lead to the events of.
Really, Scott's like, I don't give a
Alien.
shit. Does it look cool?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the film, and I think it's underrated. I think Covenant's got some issues, but I think Prometheus holds up really well. And visually, it's just stunning. And if you have a chance to see it in 3D, definitely do so. My number 4 is Matchstick Man.
Great movie.
I knew it.
Great movie.
Starring Justin Hammer and Superman.
Yeah.
What?
Close.
It's definitely, I think, the best film Nick Cage has ever done. And because I think he's got a great...
Better than Raising Arizona.
Yeah.
Better than Gone in 60 Seconds.
I think it was a great script. I think Ridley Scott does a great job with it. I mean, I love the twist. I love everything about it. I think it's a great film.
Great comedic timing.
And this is one of those films that's not one of those it's not a big popcorn flick. It's not a big sci-fi film. It's not Gladiator. It's not an epic film.
It's still beautiful.
But it's still an amazing film.
The only thing that could have made it better was if he would have stolen the Declaration of Independence.
Well, that's in Matchstick Men 2.
And he had a skullet.
My number 3 is going to be Black Hawk Down.
Nice.
It's
good movie, man.
It's a good movie. Visually, it's a treat. It sounds amazing. It is heartbreaking, but it's based on real events. It's got a great cast, and there's nothing not to like. And it feels like a Ridley Scott. It's Ridley Scott being Ridley Scott, but it's Ridley Scott taking something that was true events and doing Ridley Scott's version.
It's the most realistic Ridley Scott film ever.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the more realistic war films. Or, battles or whatever you want to call it.
And about a battle that's very, little known nowadays.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But very important.
My number 2 is going to be Blade Runner.
Ooh.
So.
I know what his number 1
is. Great film. Great cast. Visually stunning, obviously. We've talked about Blade Runner. I don't know what else I can add to it. I love Blade Runner.
Look at the models in that film.
Yeah.
And I love the... I'm always about looking at the mythology of pop culture. And look at how... At the very beginning of that film, the big buildings look like ziggurats. You know what I'm saying? They look exactly like Incan palaces and pyramids and all that stuff, and it looks amazing.
Yeah.
And I just hit my funny bone, so go ahead, John.
Yeah, it's very stylistic, but it's definitely influential as well as a film. And enjoy the film. Again, a great cast. What's
also
not to like?
Influential, like Chevy Chase.
And my favorite of all time of Ridley Scott's is Alien. I love Alien. I love the Alien franchise. I don't pay attention to the shitty Alien versus Predator films.
Boo.
And they're not canon, by the way, if you ask Ridley.
Not canon.
But I like the films in general. But it all started with the original Alien, man. I think it's a treat, especially, those are fucking models.
Yeah.
And I guess same thing we can say about Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? It was just visually a great science fiction on the eyes. And I think it's a cool story. Yeah, it's horrific and scary, and the Alien is great. They had a great cast. What's not to like, man? It still holds up really, really well. Visually,
and it's the slimiest film ever.
Behind Ghostbusters.
What about Flubber?
An Alien cubed.
Yeah, god damn it. But it was hard for me actually to pick just 5. I mean, I know which ones I enjoy the most, but as far as his film catalog, he's got a lot of great films.
Let's not sleep on G.I. Jane.
Yeah.
That movie's good.
Yeah, this is hard. It's like he has made a lot of good movies.
Yeah, he's made some great serious films, some great science fiction films, some great popcorn films. He's been all over the map, and he does a good job every time.
I noticed that nobody put Body of Lies.
Sorry, it would have been my number 9 if we did top 10. Probably wouldn't have made my top 10. So he's worked with. If you notice too, go look at who he's worked with. I think everybody he's worked with, as far as lead, I think they've all won or been nominated for an Oscar, which is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, big deal.
So that's our top 5.
I love this thing. Like even his latest film For All the Money in the World, right? He cast Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey came out accused of sexual harassment, sexual abuse. He decided, I'm gonna replace Kevin Spacey. He did it in like 2 weeks with Christopher Plummer. Christopher Plummer got nominated for an Academy Award. What a slap in the face.
Yeah.
And I'm a huge Kevin Spacey fan, but fuck anybody that's into
that.
Yeah. Screw that, man. It taints movies to me. Like Usual Suspects is a different subject that we're gonna be talking about eventually one day, maybe. But I just think that Ridley Scott is a cool dude, man.
I don't think I realized the gravity of the situation until Ridley Scott's like, well, I'm reshooting all this with somebody else. I'm like, holy shit. That puts it on a whole different... And I think Ridley Scott's a very smart person.
And does it not make sense when he has done movies like Thelma and Louise and G.I. Jane?
Yeah, he's got some strong female leads. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, he's a great director.
Well, of course, Kevin Spacey wasn't harassing females.
No, he wasn't.
Anyway,
moving on.
So that was Ridley Scott. Next episode, we're going to be talking about buddy cop movies. And I'm excited. I think it'll be a fun thing to do. We've talked about doing that for a while. And it may not just be 2 people. It may be a person and a dog.
Yeah, Turner
that
and
may
Hooch.
come up. Or a person and a child.
Man's
Yeah.
best buddy.
Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Good
or
buddy
a person
cop
and their
movie.
old mom.
Oh, don't even mess around. Estelle Getty,
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone, Stop Her, My Mom Was Cute. That's a great film. Holy cow.
yeah.
What about Cop and a Half?
And
Oh, man. We really got to expand our horizons with this.
I think Rockin' Robbie, I think you're going to do an All About the Benjamins again, right?
Yeah, part 4, actually.
Can't wait.
4.
Part 4. Can't wait.
You haven't run out of Bens yet to talk
No.
about?
I think we can do this for at least 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
All About the Alices, though, is going to go at least 2. But All About the Benjamins can go for a long time. So, yeah. Rockin' with Rockin' Robbie, YouTube exclusive podcast. All About the Benjamins Part 4. Part 1, 2, and 3 are on YouTube right now. Check them out. Get ready. Part 4 is coming. Right, Justin?
Yeah. I'm on all
Excited?
3 of them so far, and I'm going to be on the 4th.
And he's
I'm
justified.
excited. Yeah.
Yeah. You haven't been on all 3 of them.
I wasn't on the first
You weren't
one.
on the first one, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Whoops,
Or the
it's been so
Special
long.
Zero episode that we did.
I've been on all 4.
I think this is like a Mandela effect thing.
Yes.
'Cause I think I
it
was.
is. Yeah. Right.
We appreciate you guys tuning in. If you're signing on with Android, you can check us out, or Apple. You can go through iTunes. You can always check out more stuff on the website, and also check us out on Facebook and on YouTube. If you're not using the apps to listen to us, you can subscribe, listen to us. Our podcast will show right up on your device, whatever you listen to.
It's also on a lot of websites we don't know about.
Yeah, apparently there's a bunch of different things that
Yeah,
aggregate
They
like
just pull us from iTunes,
podcasts,
our
which is
RSS.
awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm happy to more listeners, the better.
Our RSS feed is available directly at popculturephilosophers.com.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
exactly. So if you have some sort of thing that siphons RSS feeds, there you go. And yeah, we appreciate you guys tuning in. I think we're about to head out, but let's talk about our final thoughts about Sir Ridley Scott.
Seriously, Justin, thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having
seriously, I love you. What's the most Ridley Scott movie?
me. Blade Runner.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree too.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
Thank you for being on the show, man.
Thanks.
Yeah. What about you, Drew? What's the most Ridley Scott movie?
Of course, it's Blade Runner.
Yes, right?
It's like story. Yeah, it's just like, but it's like it's visually amazing, audioly amazing. It's like forget. It's like it's cool.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks for being on the show.
No problem.
I agree. It's Blade Runner. Absolutely. And be sure to join us for PCP After Hours. We're about to record that right now. You can join us by joining our community here on Patreon, patreon.com/PCP. Join us for as little as $1 a month. You get access to After Hours, early access to things like Movie Monday, sometimes the Pop Culture Weekly Wrap-Up, all that stuff. So check us out. On the next After Hours, we'll be talking about, is Deckard a replicant or is he not? And we'll be talking about why Drew does not like the Bourne Identity movies. What about you, John? What's the most Ridley Scott movie? I'm Rockin' Robbie. Billups signing out.
Does it have to be a movie? I would say the 90s Nissan commercial he did.
Oh.
With the 300ZX twin turbo where they're trying to catch him in the car and they can't. And they try to catch him in a motorcycle and they can't. And they can't catch him on a plane, can't catch this car. And it's just like the most over-the-top commercial that they end up banning because it's like, this is going to get people to speed. But it was the most Ridley Scott. Like, if Ridley Scott was doing a car commercial, that's what he would do, and he did. In fact, literally,
and then he did it.
Commercial. Films Blade Runner. I mean, Ridley Scott is Ridley Scott. So we appreciate you guys tuning in, and go watch a Ridley Scott film, man. Quit listening to the show. Go watch something. Go watch Alien. Go watch Blade Runner. Go watch Thelma and Louise.
Gladiator.
Go watch, well, maybe Gladiator.
Maybe Kingdom of Heaven, director's cut.
Hey.
Yeah, maybe Body of Lies.
No.
We'll be all right.
Watch Matchstick Man. I think that's probably
Yeah,
the
it's a
one
great
that most people haven't seen, unfortunately.
Underrated.
Yes,
It's
most underrated film.
because of Nick Cage.
Yes, he does a phenomenal job in that. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Check us out next time. Same PCP channel, same PCP time. Not really a time or channel. It's come to the damn website. We do the shows almost, I'd say probably twice a month. We appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll check you out next time. Check you out next time. You check us out. I don't know what's going on. We're just going to end the show.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Love you guys. Bye.